All right. I get the opportunity right now to have you here and to discuss all the amazing things. You got a new kitchen, which the TikToks have been fire coming out of
Thank
them.
you.
Yeah. But even with all that space, we're recording out of a closet. So like this to
Yeah.
me is like the most authentic version of you. So welcome to the pod, my friend.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, typically would be in my nice new office, but there's construction going on across the street. So, and when I say across the street, like basically outside the window of my office. So, I'm in my closet today. But it's actually great for sound quality. Apparently, lots of podcasters do this on purpose.
Yeah,
So I'm excited. You guys will be able to hear me a lot more clearly.
I know. I need to get one of those things that go against the wall, like that absorbs sound, because
Yeah.
uh my wife constantly is like, "Hey, I can hear everything you're talking about right now." So, all right.
Yeah, that would be definitely be helpful for sure.
Yeah. So how's the new place? Tell me, obviously I've been really enjoying seeing the kitchen, which is just so amazing, especially for the area too.
Yeah.
So how's the new place?
It's amazing. It's big and beautiful and brand new. That's what's going on across the street is they're building
Yeah.
another one of these buildings, but this is like I think me and my boyfriend we're like the first tenants out of like now there's probably it's I think they're at 40% capacity, but when we got here back in May, there was like 9 other people living here. So it's like
Yeah.
literally brand spanking new. We came from a 1 bedroom and now we're in a 3 bedroom apartment that has a really nice like amenity room and a really pretty rooftop. It really has everything. The only thing it's missing is a pool, but it's all right. It's all right. I could make do. The kitchen is amazing. It's what made me come here. Obviously being a dietitian, the kitchen is
Yeah.
important, and I almost felt like I was doing a disservice to my followers because a lot of my content pre living here was more about like mindset, which is super helpful, right? But there
Yeah.
wasn't a lot of like food stuff because to be honest,
Yeah.
like there wasn't I like had zero space. We were on top of each other. So like the thought of cooking wasn't really fun. And to be honest, I was so busy. Now I have a lot more time, but I was
Yeah.
so busy and we honestly like ordered in a lot. I didn't cook much. Like I cooked, but like it was like minimal. So I really love the kitchen. It's inviting. Even Bruce, my boyfriend, has been cooking more. And it's been so nice because his cooking is so good. I keep telling him, like, can you just cook all the time? Because I cook with like for like a purpose to like eat and move on and do what I have to do. And like, we work together. I've worked with you as like my dietitian, so
Yeah. Yeah.
so one of the things I need to like be more patient, and that's everything in life. And I'm like, but like you could do it. Like, or you could
Yeah.
be the one who puts all the love and seasonings and spices, and he
All the
really just
things.
makes the food taste so good. Where I'm just like, all right, we just gotta eat. Let's go.
It's so funny that you mentioned that too, because like now that I tell people, like you go through periods and waves of just different transitions in life, and
Mhm.
now Callie does pretty much all the shopping and cooking now. Because our little 5-year-old is now in school, so she really takes a
Oh.
huge priority during the weekends to like prepare things, and with our school too, like they just have it to where, especially in the early ages, like it's primarily plant-based, which isn't a huge change for us, but it kind of takes out throwing in fish and other things that we usually do.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's so funny that you mentioned that, because I'm at a point now too, like I don't do the amount of food demos and stuff that I used to, because I'm kind of like doing different things. So it's so funny
Mhm.
that you're like letting other people do the food, whereas dietitians, we're supposed to be the food people, right?
Yeah, yeah, but no, you make it work. You gotta make it
Yeah,
work.
yeah. So Tony, obviously, our listeners got a big introduction before the pod started, and I kind of want to bounce around a little bit, because obviously with these Friday Heroes Journey pods, like we're diving into people's journeys, what they've had to overcome, where they are currently, what they feel like it feels like to make it, right?
Right.
So I kind of want to jump around a little bit. So for our followers out there, I'm sure you'll be able to follow along. But currently, um, I saw this picture that you had just posted with two of your other team members. Those are two dietitians, correct?
Yes! Mary
Oh
Rose
my
and
God.
Casey. Yeah, my
And
RD.
Tony, you look so damn happy. How is that
Yeah.
going so far?
It's going great. It's going great. If you would have told me that I would have my own business and actually had dietitians that worked under me, I would have told you you're a liar. Because also, like, I like
Yeah.
used to like have so much. I feel the need of like so much control. So like letting them coach other people and using my methods has been a learning experience. But they're honestly amazing. So I feel like I have my life back because for so long
Oh my
I was
God.
like I was saying before, I was just cooking all like barely cooking, like eating, like just like going from A to B, like just constantly like marketing the business, being the coach of the business, being the
Yeah.
everything. And now I have my life again. So it's just nice. I can really focus on,
You
I
can
don't have
see
to
it too.
rush through things. I can just like do what I want to do. Like, and it's really nice. And so also too, having them on the team, and now I can reach more people. So I
Yeah.
have more energy to do more stuff like, for free on social media, right? And then as more, there's two of them. There was one of me, right? So with two of them, they can take on double the client load than I was
Yeah.
taking. So more people are getting more one-on-one attention. It frees up space and time for me to do more outreach. And then eventually I see myself adding another dietitian and another dietitian as much as, feel like it's necessary so we can reach as many people as possible.
That's so cool. And Tony, you can see it not only just in your content, but how you're showing up. I mean, obviously this podcast is for like the high performer within everyone. And when you're able to find some sort of semblance, obviously balance is in the eye of the beholder. But when you're able to find a balance, like it really shows because you can pour into things that you're truly passionate about. And um, yeah, I see it. So I'm so happy to see that you're happy with it.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely was like on the verge of burnout all the time before this.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
constantly exhausted, had all the energy and then just like burnt out 2 days later. And just like needing to recharge. Cuz what we do as dietitians, it's not it's more of the emotional work, like
Yeah.
listening to people. A
Yeah.
lot of people that we work with struggle with emotional eating or have disordered
Mhm.
relationship with food and their body image, and so it's really it's beautiful. But honestly, I give therapists so much credit because a lot of people will be like, it's like
Oh my
working with a
god.
therapist. I'm like, we're not therapists. Go to work with a therapist. They're amazing. But
Yeah.
like, we are a great compliment to that. And they'll often give us that feedback. And sometimes it does feel that way. Like, we really are, you have to be listening with such
Yeah.
intense focus. And I was noticing that myself, like, I was giving all my everything for clients, but then when it came to like my own loved ones, I had nothing
Yeah.
left to give.
Yeah.
Literally nothing left to give.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so great too, because I think, we saw each other back in May. Shout out Andres and GB for that beautiful wedding.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember at that time we are like sitting at the table and you were on your phone and we were joking with you, like, all right, we're gonna stack our phones if you don't put it away. And what you had said was so profound. It was like, I'm pulling in more of a team, so I feel like I need to go get more people. And I think
Yeah.
I heavily resonated with that because it's like, damn, it's really hard to be still when you have everything that's going on in your mind
Mhm.
and you want to help so many people. And it's just nice to see that after a couple months later you've been able to build that. And on top of that too, and again, for our pod listeners out there, I really want to kind of jump around a little bit because there's so many things about Toni that I really enjoy seeing, just from the standpoint of being a really good friend of hers, and then also
Mhm.
she is like my constant motivation. um,
Oh.
but you just decided on a book cover too, right?
Yeah, the book is coming out so soon, Des. I'm
Oh,
so
yeah.
excited. Literally, it is the longest process. It takes so much longer
I
than you
can't
think. I
dude, I
thought
can't
it would
even.
be ready to go
God.
by September 28th. Like that was going to be my launch date, Tuesday, September 28th.
Yeah,
But there's been a little bit of like hiccups, and I want to make sure everything's aligned before I release it. So,
yeah.
but definitely by the end of October, I can say that hands down, it will definitely be out. So yeah, so Once Upon a Diet, be on the lookout if you're interested about learning the parallels between dieting, dating, and romantic relationships, and
God.
how we treat them the same and how we need to stop doing that. And there's just so many better ways to go about it. Definitely be on the lookout. You can get it on Amazon. It's called Once Upon a Diet.
Oh, well, because like our listeners don't know this, but I know this because you and I were able to share this journey a little bit. But like
Yeah.
this was a little bit of, I don't even want to, I mean, would you call it a precursor? Because like this has just been an ongoing project for you, but this was also
Yeah.
the title, not the title rather, but like the subject matter of a TEDx talk that you absolutely crushed as well. I mean, right?
Thank you. It is actually the title. I just
Yeah.
decided. So
You
basically,
did?
the
Okay.
TEDx talk was like my original thought, and then as I was developing the talk, I
Yeah.
was realizing, oh my god, there's so much more here. And the talk I did, every TEDx talk is a different length quota. Mine was only eight
Yeah.
minutes, so I was like, I can't fit everything I want to say in 8 minutes. It's a great little like you know
That's
teaser,
so quick.
but
That's so damn quick.
8 minutes
Yeah.
is like, I got to introduce myself, establish a credibility, like
Yeah.
give you some tips and make it go well. Like
Trust
in 8
and
minutes,
engage.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, that is a lot to handle.
Oh my God.
So yeah, so the book is an extension of that. And I love the title of the TEDx talk. So I wanted to keep it going. I didn't think it
Yeah.
could, to just use it on one thing. So yeah, Once Upon a Diet has been a project for about 2 years, and I got in my own way for about a year of it. But
Yeah.
since we're talking to successful people or inspiring to be or high performers,
Yeah. Yeah.
I will just shed like one thing I've been learning a lot about the process of the entrepreneurial journey is you really have to be more compassionate to yourself and shift the perspective a
Yeah.
little bit. So, like, yeah, obviously, when COVID happened, my priorities shifted from writing the book, which I thought I'd have all the time in the world to write the book. But
Yeah.
instead, I was very blessed. My client load, like, skyrocketed.
Yeah.
That became the priority. And you know what? I wasn't going to turn people away, especially during a time where they felt like they needed me the most. So, I honestly was able to build up my client load, and that's when I came to the idea of like, well, okay, I can't also be burnt out all the time. So
Yeah.
that's what has birthed my now, more of a team. And now instead of it just being working with me or working with other RDs, and once I was able to kind of give them the responsibility, it created space to finally finish
Yeah.
the book. So all that to say, like, your timeline probably will change, and that's okay. And you have to remind yourself that if you're not doing something at the pace in which you want it to, it's probably because you're prioritizing something else that's equally or if not more important. And
Yeah.
that's okay. So I've had to like remind myself that, listen, whether I finish the book in a year or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, I still wrote a book, and I'm
Yeah.
still helping and inspiring people in the best way that I can.
Which I think it's such a gem. I can definitely attribute a lot of my even just with this pod. I mean, it was such a huge milestone to hit past episode 50, because I told myself a long time ago, I was like, all right, I'm gonna go with 100, and I'm just gonna see where it goes from there, because I overthought this project for like 3 years. Like, what equipment should I use? Like, it just
Mm,
it was so much imposter syndrome that happened. And Tony, I love the fact that your big takeaway there is just like a shit ton of self compassion, um, and some ownership. Like, what is taking a lot of your time right now, and is that the priority type of thing? So there's just so much about where you're at right now that I really love seeing. And because this is about like the journey, let's go back a little bit. Let's tie in what and who and all the things that created this wonderful person ahead of us right now. So let's start with childhood. Tell us
I
about your
was going to say,
childhood.
how far back do you want to
Yeah,
go?
I wanna know, because like for me, like it was so funny. Like I compete with a lot of our high performing clients right now, and one of my clients was like, "Dude, do you play basketball like every day? Like why?" And I was like, "Dude, to be honest, like I really love the game, but for me, at the young age of 6 or 7, like basketball was the first time that I remember the negative self talk creeping in. So for me, it is just
Mm,
that it's that constant like, hey, you're missing shots, what does that mean? And it's my
mhm,
constant like curiosity project. So yeah,
mm.
I want to know about child Tony.
Yeah, sure. So, okay. So it started, I mean, from what I can remember, I grew up, the, you know, I was overweight and I was insecure, but
Hmm.
didn't always feel that way. So for
Yeah.
me, it was probably when I was 9. For most of my life, kids did tease me for my weight. It even came from family members. In the book, you'll read, it's a short segment, but it's just to get you to understand kind of what my environment was like. Very loving, appreciative Greek Italian family. Food was abundant, but there was a
Hmm.
lot of missed messages, meaning like I would be encouraged to eat and eat and eat, but then
Mhm.
sometimes I would get comments like my grandmother would make like puff her cheeks at the dinner table, like
Yeah.
you guys can't see, but like almost like if I keep eating, I'm gonna gain weight or get quote unquote fat, right?
Yeah.
So stuff like that. My dad would kind of like narrow his eyes at me if I go for a second serving. But it was
Mhm.
very conflicting. It was very confusing. And then I was getting teased at school about my weight by, by boys. And
Yeah.
um, all that to say, I was really happy. Like, and then at some point I was like, wait a minute, like, am I not supposed to be happy? Like, am I supposed to
Yeah.
be upset? And everyone told me I was overweight. So I was like, all right, well, this is the reason why, my life is, I'm not getting, maybe this is why my crush doesn't like me back. This
Yeah.
is why I'm not, I played sports as well. So as I got older, it was like, oh, this is why I'm not on the varsity basketball team. As a freshman, I thought I was really good, but it must be because I can't run the fast mile, all the things. It was all about my weight, all about my weight. It really held me back. But also too, I think because I felt like my weight was holding me back, I had to like succeed and excel with my grades,
Yeah.
so I was a little bit of an overachiever when it comes to like my academics. I mean, now it obviously has blessed me to be where I'm at today. But all that to say, I think that a lot of my entrepreneurial spirit, maybe it was like kind of always there, just being that happy go lucky kid. And then I started probably getting into more of like the people pleasing things where I started just
Yeah.
doing things because I didn't want to rock the boat. And then as I got older, I think for me, and then it shifted when I finally was like, all right, I'm just going to do the entrepreneur thing. I think it shifted to this place of like I was always trying to prove something, even with like my journey and with my weight and all of that. And I've finally have come to this place now where I'm really just very clear on who I am and who I want to be, and I'm no longer trying to please other people. So when you can get to that place, you can still accomplish many things as you do, but when you get to that place, that's when like true like freedom happens. That's where true creativity happens. That's where like true
Mhm.
energy happens. That's where things start to shift. But um good things come from like negative places, right? So for a while, I think I was just my whole entrepreneurial journey. I'm working like a crazy person. I've always just been trying to prove something to somebody,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah.
but now I do it genuinely just because I really love what I do, and I implemented boundaries. I know when to stop. I still get caught up. I'm not perfect by any means. Like
Sure. Yeah.
I definitely have obsessive tendencies, which I think is partly what makes a lot of people successful.
Yeah.
But it's learning how to like get a hold of it and noticing it so it doesn't kind of, you're working all the time and then never being fully present with your family.
Yeah. It's so funny because, I mean, I don't wanna use the term funny, it's ironic. So at anytime, because I still do work with eating disorder recovery and,
Mm,
anytime that body image gets brought up, I'll take groups through one really great exercise that I find is just really helpful with clarity, and then it's also helpful for the team that's helping the person to further understand why they do what they do and
mm,
understanding the trauma a bit more. But one of the things, Tony, that and I think probably you and I have maybe discussed this in one way or another, one of the things I like to do is kind of separate their life into three different categories. So it's like childhood, adolescence, and then adulthood. And in each phase, what I'll do is like, hey, what did you think about your body at the time? What did others say about your body at the time?
mm,
And then the third one is like, what influential events happened at that time? And I think, Tony, you mentioned something very early on that like you were really happy, and then the narrowing glance from your dad like getting seconds. And um gosh, shout out to all the grandmothers and grandfathers out there. You mean well, you just didn't know what you were doing.
exactly,
You just
exactly.
didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah, they thought they
um
were hoping,
yeah,
not
yeah,
helping.
they thought that they were helping. They thought like, I don't want anyone to hurt this little amazing human being, so let me help you with what we think you need help with. Um,
Hmm.
so we talked about that, in your younger childhood. When was the first time for you that you were able to kind of not be authentically you, but you're like, wait, I do have to fit a certain standard. Like, when was that time for
Mm.
you?
Oh, probably. I would say being a dietitian. I think it's a constant pressure, to be honest.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I think more and more people are we're, the healthy at every size movement is currently happening. People are learning
Hmm.
more about fat phobia. People are kind of learning about kind of where this ideal one size fits all body size came from,
Hmm.
um but all that to say, I think that even when I was a dietitian, I'm just like, I have a bigger body. Like, that's just
Yeah.
it. So I'm never going to wear a size 2. Like,
Hmm.
never. Literally, my body is not designed that way.
Yeah.
Um, and, as a dietitian, a lot of people, I would get comments from clients, not current clients, because, it's my own business. So if they ever said that,
Yeah.
I'd just be like, I don't think we're a good fit.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when
This
I
is
worked
pretty
in like
quick.
corporate,
I'm gonna
when
refer
I
you out.
when I worked in corporate, and like I got paid a salary, and I gave like free nutrition services to clients. They would come into the office and kind of be like, "How are you going to help me?" And I'd be like, "What do you mean?" "Well, you're overweight, so how can you teach me how to lose weight?"
Like,
And I
first
got
of all, do
comments.
you want to fight?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, it always brought me back to childhood. Like, it always did. I'm
Yeah.
human, right? So I still, the other day, I did a reel about body confidence, and I was wearing like, I don't think I told anybody this. I don't know if I put it on. I think I did share it on my story. Anyways, I was wearing like a one piece sort of outfit. Anyways, and I guess in this video, my belly looked like it was like out a little bit, which is also normal. We have stomachs,
Yeah.
we have bellies, that's
Yeah.
normal.
People.
And some guy who's a quote unquote nutritionist from a different country messages me and goes, "Oh, you're so beautiful. If only we can get rid of that belly. I know I can help you." Like, out of
That's
the
their
blue.
pitch?
This
Oh
was
my
this
god.
this was like, not even kidding, Des. This was maybe 2 months ago. So all that to say, like, we live in a society, and it goes outside of America, because, like I said, this person from a different country.
Yeah.
That there's certain, standards, and I actually am kind of jumping a little bit, but I was just at a wedding recently, and one of the bridesmaids, I became closer with her, through the event or whatever, and she's actually originally from Spain. She says, she models, but she's considered a plus size model. When I tell you she's a quarter of my size, my jaw dropped. I was like, you're considered in Spain, she's considered a plus size model. And if she wanted to be a
Yeah.
regular model, she would have to lose 10 kilograms, which is like 20 pounds. I was like,
Yeah.
where? So all that to
Wow.
say, we're always going to be going against like standards or perfectionism. I'm using air quotes. Like, there's always going to be this perception. And so I think I'm constantly reminded, especially being in a role as a dietitian where you're supposed to look a certain way, because apparently looking a certain way means that you have healthy eating behaviors. Um, I'm constantly reminded that I'll never live up to anybody else's standards, which is why
Yeah.
I've done so much personal development work and so much therapy and like done
Yeah.
all these things to just remind myself, is that who do I want to be, what's important to me, what are my values. And some people are going to like it and some people aren't, but at the end of the day, my body isn't who I am. It's a part of who I
Hmm.
am, but it's not who I
Yeah.
am, right? And as long as I'm consistently doing the things that are of value to me, that are important to me, then I know I'm okay.
Yeah. In for our listeners out there, if you have not gotten to the episode with Tony Castillo, I mean, this isn't men aren't immune to this. I think it's not something that's talked about as much, and more in the female, I guess, space or demographic. It's something that they're a bit more courageous, or a lot more courageous, to discuss what we need to discuss. And I think it's important for us to get behind the notion of, Tony, what you just said. Like, we have a body. It's not exactly who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's a shit ton of work that needs to happen in order to feel more authentic in your body. And Tony, for you, I'm wondering if you can shed some light on, why do you think that there is such a huge priority based on how we look?
Mm. Oh, well,
I mean,
it's a pretty deep question.
that's a deep
I
question,
mean,
right? So, like, what's your
it's
take on
just,
it?
well, so I agree with you. Men definitely deal with these standards
Hmm.
as well. Um, God, how do we? I they deal with them, but I feel like it was started to target women. Like, if we're being completely honest, we live in a
Yeah.
very. I don't want to go on a complete tangent, but
You absolutely can. You
So we live in a patriarchal society where it's literally just a way to keep women from like distracted. Like
yeah,
dieting and all these things have literally just been like a distraction. If you go back in ancient times, a bigger body was considered abundant. It meant that you were
yeah,
rich. So it was what
yeah,
people wanted, right? Then over time went on, it was like, oh no, you need to be like stick skinny because that was privilege, right? Because
hmm,
privilege was now you can afford less processed foods and more wholesome
yeah,
foods, right? If you go back even to like not even body physical body but like at some point like thin eyebrows were in like super
hmm,
thin, like it looked like that was like the in thing, and like women would literally tweeze off their eyebrows, and now full eyebrows are in, so
yeah,
it was just like
yeah,
trends change and they're always going to change, and I just think that it's just like a way to distract us. It's also, and not let's not even blame patriarchy. I think we have to take responsibility for ourselves as well. I know for a while I was really struggling with my mental health. And because everyone was teasing me about my weight, I was like, oh, it must be my body that I need to change. No,
yeah,
it's the anxiety I need to focus on. It's the, my
yeah, yeah,
environment. Like, it actually has nothing to do with my body, but because it's easy, it's tangible, that's often
hmm,
what people go to. So obviously, it's like, the bigger thing of just the society that we live in. I use the example in my book where I talk about, if you think about like the cover of a magazine, you don't even have to open it for it to already like the headlines are like,
entice you.
lose weight, get the guy you want. Like you don't even need to open it to know that like, oh, if I change the way I look, people are going to love me and accept me, right? Growing up watching, every Disney princess, none of them were in a bigger body, right? So it wasn't said directly like, oh, if you are in a smaller body, you will find love, but you never saw somebody in a bigger body represented as the main character who found love,
Yep, yep,
right?
yeah,
So it's just so that's where it's a lot of what we've seen and it's a lot of what we're around, but then it's also for us I think a lot easier to deal with like, oh, I need to lose weight versus like, oh, I need to like heal the trauma that I went through when I was a child. It's
hmm,
just kind of what I think we're used to going to as like the easy way out, but we know that you're just putting a band-aid over the real issue.
yeah. Well, I think Tony, I think it's perfectly okay to have to acknowledge all of those things. I mean, I sort of think about the amount of privilege and supremacy that has happened behind like what
Sorry.
is known as health, right? Um,
Excuse me.
and then Tony's dying. So
Sorry. I'm
yeah,
good.
so what is known as health? Because I mean, there's a huge reason why like my wife's been very, very outspoken about just I mean, your book is about Disney princesses, right? And it just using
Well,
that
it's not.
analogy,
It's I use
it's
the
not about
analogy in it. Yeah, I use
it's
the
the
analogy
analogy.
in it.
But
Yeah,
it's such a
yeah.
great analogy too, because like we have decided not to have our 5-year-old watch any of those movies. And like for now it's more about like adversity or rather diversity, progression. Like it's about
Mm,
empowerment, right? And so I think there's
mm,
just so much that goes into that I think we need to continue to talk about, because let's just look at the BMI. I mean, it's a marker that was that was modeled after like white men, and it's like,
mhm,
well,
mhm.
that's not they're not. I don't know about you, but you're not a white male. Like,
No, exactly.
why is this even used, type of thing? And so I think
Yeah.
there's just so much about it where like as you start to go down your own like self-development journey, it's noticing, and I love what you're saying about this too, Tony, like it's noticing that you do have a body, and you're going to have to come to a place where you can acknowledge and begin to expand on body neutrality and then body love. And so this is something that
Mhm,
you do all the time with people that you work with. I mean, what traps are you finding with most people? Because I see it too, and I always tell people like, hey, seeing a number on the scale, a lesser number is does not it's not going to do a whole lot for you because
mhm,
it's inner.
mhm,
So I mean,
mhm.
what are some of the traps that you see that you're like, crap, like I have either struggled with that or I know how to help you with this.
Yeah, definitely. I think fixating on the number on a scale is if that's the only thing you're looking at, you're already setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
You really need, like, and I talk about this in the book too. We have, objective goals and subjective goals.
Hmm.
Subjective goals are a little bit more tangible because they're
Hmm.
numerical, whereas objective goals are more so um like you can't really you can only really put a feeling to it. So basically more
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
want to want to see the number on the scale change. They want to know
Mhm.
their pant size dropped, like all that. But realistically, we need to focus on what actually matters. So we need to focus on how we feel, PRs in the gym,
Mhm.
our relationship with food, how we
Yeah.
recover if we overeat, maybe less guilt or shame, getting outside of the extremes. Those are the things that actually matter.
Mhm.
And so I think it's important, and to help people with that, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier about, you know, having a body. I think a lot of times you'll hear people say like your body is the least interesting thing about you. And what
Mhm.
they mean by that is like who you are as a person, your character and what you do is more important than what you look like. And I completely
Mhm.
agree with that. At the same time, like your body, I find bodies fascinating. I find that your body really is very interesting. It really
Yeah.
is there to protect you. It really
Mhm.
is incredible, and it's there for you. So instead of us abusing it by either underfueling it or overeating and binging, right? Let's get a handle on how can we care for our bodies and show it respect and love every day, even if we don't love it quite yet. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a hard thing to do, which is why, Desi and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
are in this field.
Yeah.
But it is possible. It definitely is possible.
Well, because and this is kind of, because we do have a lot of listeners that are dietitians. So shout out to you all.
Yay.
Um, and this is something I don't know what your take is on this, Tony, and I wonder if you can shed some light on it too. I tend to find that when there's some differences with how people operate with trying to help people, that it's either one way or another,
Yeah.
and there's kind of a battle. And I say
Yeah.
this because like there's the non-diet approach versus
Mhm.
others, um,
Mhm.
and there's just a constant state of clash. And I tend to find that like when I see it, I take a step back and I'm like, from what I know about habits, what I know about the psychology behind why you do what you do, what I know about eating disorder recovery, what I know about all of these things is that each and every one of us have had this path, and we have found things to really, really work for us. And because it works for us, it doesn't mean that needs to work for the person, but you tend to have a little bit of a bias with what you feel like is the best way to help mold someone.
Mhm.
Um, and because of that, I find that it's like, hey, can we all just acknowledge that we've had to go through some shit and had to understand like how to get through it and how to show up as our most authentic selves, and that's how we're helping people. Um,
Mhm.
what's your take on that? Because when I see that battle, it's like, hey, like I think that we've all tried to figure out what works best for us, and then try to impart that knowledge on others. But like, what's your take on that?
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that anyone, whether it's a diet or a way of eating, who
Hmm.
claims that their way is the only way, needs
Yeah.
to take a deeper, bigger look in the mirror,
Yeah.
because
Go
there is
run.
never one way to do something, right?
Yeah.
So there's also a time and place for things, and there's also a certain type of person who will thrive in different setups. Um,
Mhm.
what I think where we're stuck at right now is, when people think of dieting, they think of extreme restriction or
Yeah.
excessive exercise. And then when they're not doing that, it's a free for all. So,
Mhm.
unfortunately, I think that both diet culture and then the other side, the anti diet community, are playing into those very same narratives. And it's not
Yeah.
actually it's not that helpful, because really it's like, oh, so you mean I
Yeah.
shouldn't, restrict my calories, and I shouldn't
Yeah.
exercise like a maniac. Oh, so then I guess it's okay if I never move my body. And
Yeah.
I know that's not what anti-diet culture is trying to do. Trust
Yeah.
me, I'm more towards anti-diet culture than anything.
Yeah.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, I think we really need to remember that every individual has different wants and needs, and we have
Mhm.
to meet them where they're at. And although we might understand that true intuitive eating is exactly what they need, it's
Mhm.
really hard for someone to go there right away to understand that concept. It's like a foreign concept to them when they've been
Yeah.
dieting their entire life. So you have to meet them in the middle. And I always have believed that, as much as I can't stand most of the diets out there, there's
Mhm.
components to it that actually do help you. So let's take components from that and components
Yeah.
from this and components to you listening to your body, which is the strongest component we're ever going to get. Take my expert advice, put it together, experiment, and figure out. And that's how we're going to figure out what works best for you. It
Hmm.
doesn't need to be one way or the other. And I think that the more people try to force that onto people, the less likely that they're going to see their clients thrive.
Yeah. Well, I think to go deeper into that too, Tony, obviously, like with this podcast, we're diving into the habits and the mindset of high performing people. And obviously, you're one of those people. So you said that you've had to do a shit ton of work to get to where you are today. And I think
Hmm.
it's really, I think it takes a really self aware person to constantly pour into people and to do so over longevity and to continue to see an evolution. So for you, like what sort of things past, present, or current, or whatever, have kept you in a place where you can lean into people and still get your needs met? I mean, what
Mm.
habits or what things do you attribute to that?
Um, Definitely a good night's sleep. I am not the same, and
Dude.
you know this, Des. Des knows.
Yeah.
Des, I worked with Dezi, and my body, and you know what I was just observing. I think I was talking to. I think yeah, it was just earlier today. I was talking to a new client. She was very introspective. I'm like, you are going to thrive in this program. Like, you just need
Mhm.
some structure and accountability and guidance. But
Yeah.
like, your mindfulness is already like subpar. I mean, more
Yeah.
than like, yeah, really good. That's really
Yeah.
good. The opposite
Just
of
really good.
that. And she was kind of talking about how, she realized like she's finally have transitioned into, she's doing her own business. She used to, work for other people. She was like always burnt out. And like
I love
now she
that.
thinks she still has like this aftermath though, where she's just still feels like she's always tired. And when Desi and I hired Desi as my dietitian because I needed accountability. I was talking about last year.
I
I
do
took
wanna
on
touch
so
on
many
this, by the
clients.
way, when you're
Yeah,
done.
I
I
took
do wanna
on
touch on
so
this.
many
Okay.
clients. So like I was just like always like tired, like all the time.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I honestly through working realized like, okay, I really need like 8 to 9 hours of sleep to function. Like I
Yeah.
genuinely do. I could not do that and didn't take a power nap in the middle of the day, but knowing that I'm my absolute best when I get 8 to 9 hours of sleep, I'm just gonna work with that. I was like so resistant to it because I always want to like get more done. But
Yeah, yeah.
I get more done when I allow that space and time for my sleep. So that's definitely priority number one. And
Yeah.
then other things like introspective work, instead of listening to the radio, I mean, for years I've been just listening to podcasts or personal development books. So shout out to whoever's just listening to this, you're already on the right
Mhm.
track.
Yeah.
But then I will say if you're like an extra high performer, because like I said before, with me, I have like obsessive tendencies. So I got I got so hyper focused on like I have to listen to this podcast, I have to listen to this audiobook, but I would like forget that I also just love music. And I just like
Yeah.
love to dance. So like
Yeah.
now like I'll play music while I'm cooking. Like, and I know it sounds so insignificant, but it's such a big deal, especially when you're doing big things and you're so kind of like focused and you have a clear, you have a lot to do, a lot of things that you not do, get to
There
do
you
on
go.
your checklist. You got to bring the joy into it because you're it's a beautiful things what you're doing and what is to come, but it does require work, so make that work enjoyable. Don't wait for
Yeah.
the end or when you hit a certain like revenue goal or a certain part in your journey to celebrate. You have to learn how to celebrate now, and I think that's what I'm continuously learning right now is like keeping things in practice, so keeping my brain saturated with like well informed like information, but also
Mhm.
allowing time for fun and flexibility, and yeah, adequate sleep.
Well, it's so funny. So, Tony, I would love to talk about working together if that's okay. Because like,
Yeah.
for me, and early on, so for our listeners out there, like I've been a dietitian for, how old is Rory? Almost 5 years. Because I found out that my wife was pregnant like on day one of our dietetic internship. So that's how I
No
know how long I've been.
way.
Yeah,
Oh my
that's how I know.
god.
Yeah, right. That's how I know how long I've been a dietitian. So for our listeners out there, like obviously you've seen my evolution because I continue to talk about it, and something that I have been really, really grateful for is the people that I've gotten to cross their paths and just be a part of their journey. And Tony, you are absolutely one. And I think also for our listeners out there, understanding that if you're stuck or you need accountability, it's okay to put up the white flag and be like, hey, I need some mentorship or I need some help. And I think, Tony, one of the things that I really was so thankful for is one, that you said, "Hey, I need some help. I need some accountability," and then two, obviously, choosing to join and us collaborate. One of the things that I saw from you that I thought was so cool, sort of just visualizing, is that you came in seeking some like aesthetic goals, and very early on you were like, this doesn't feel good. I think one of the calls that we had, I think, was so great, is like we were in a point where we are at like a deficit, and you're like, Des, I'm down, I'm tired. I
Mhm.
don't think this is working. And it was like, all right,
Mhm.
cool. Let's take a look at some of the things that we know are going to really help you. And sleep was one of them. Like, all right, let's throw our eggs in that basket. The strength training piece, we already knew that you were doing. Like, let's change it up and let's make sure that we are doing things that are high reward. And one of the things that I remember saying, just saying to myself, was like, wow, this is really cool. When you get to work with someone who is really attuned to their needs and they can voice that, it becomes so easy to work with that person, because just like you had said, like this other client was really introspective. It was the same thing with you. It was like, all right, these are the things that we know are working, and these are the things that we can kind of leave behind. We tried them,
Mhm.
it doesn't work. Uh, and then, like for me, what was also great is like you took that experience, just from my perspective, you took that experience and you're like, all right, I'm going to throw my eggs in the basket of like helping people to be mindful that there are going to be times where you're not going to be very comfortable with your body, and then really helping them to understand what self-love and appreciation looks like. So, like, that was
Yeah.
my take on your journey,
No.
and that's why I think it's just
Yeah.
like really, it's really mind-blowing for people out there to be like, I need help, and they don't take the chance to get that type of mentorship, because it's like there's so much that can come when someone else has eyes on your behavior.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And I definitely want to add to this. I don't know who's listening, but it's okay to have aesthetic goals. And I think that goes where you would be surprised to see
100%.
someone who's like on anti-diet side versus like, I think Desi and I are very similar in our approach. And it's
Yeah.
interesting too, because you have a history of working with eating disorders. So I feel like most people on that side would be 100% intuitive eating, but there
Yeah.
really is a middle. And then there's people who really
Yeah.
need to follow one or the other. But all that to say, um, I think it's normal that when you feel uncomfortable in your body,
Mhm.
your first thought is I need to change the way it looks.
Yeah.
And even I fell into that trap. So I reached out to Desi knowing I trust him, I respect him. He knows my story and my journey.
Mhm.
I've worked in the past. I've worked with coaches to help with like I've done all the things and you'll read about it in my book. Like I don't sugarcoat anything. Like I've
Yeah.
done all the things even with the expertise and knowledge that there's another way or a better way. My I was always called to do certain things. So all that to say, um even I got caught up in that, and I think what I got from working with you was that I was like finally done with trying to change it, and
Yeah.
more so I just fully learned I just have to continue to love it and respect it and care for it and appreciate it and just be there for it, because it's not that because I had gained some weight that I was feeling uncomfortable in my body. It's because, like I was saying it to you before, I wasn't focused. I barely sat down to eat a meal. I was just
Yeah.
like focused on one
Go, go,
client
go,
after
go,
another
go.
after another. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't doing what I teach. I wasn't practicing mindfulness. Like it just was like all over the place. I was allowing life happen to me, but life happening to me rather than being me being rather than me being in charge of my life, right? And
Yeah.
so once, finally, like after like a couple weeks, I was like, that's what I just needed to be reminded that I
Yeah.
don't need to try to change it. It might change after as a result of me, engaging in healthier behaviors again and finally sitting down for food
Yeah.
and, and like not shoving my face and like, like
Yeah.
eating
Yeah.
while standing. Guys, anybody who eats when standing, there's a clear sign something you need
Yeah.
to calm that pump the
There's
brakes
some
a bit. Okay.
imbalances.
So let's pump the brakes a bit. So yeah, so anyways, that was yeah, that was a special lesson. I honestly felt like I came full circle with that.
Well, even then too, and this is where like I want people who are going to watch this on IGTV, YouTube, or even just listening on wherever you get your pods. We worked together for, I think, like 3 months, maybe
I
four.
think it was
Like,
4. Yeah,
it was
4
four.
months.
Okay, so we worked together for 4 months, right? What was really cool to see is like we got clarity on some of the things that we know that weren't going to serve us in the long run. And what was even better was like after we kind of transition you out, like you started working with someone, you built your team. Like what we uncovered during that short amount of time has, to me, as I look at it, like has been like lifelong fulfillment, because you understood that like you are only one person, and
Mhm.
you want to make sure that you like get your cup full like on a daily basis at least, because you're pouring into people. And like what was cool to see is like for us to get clarity on that, and for you to do such a beautiful job at taking some of that feedback and being able to be like, okay, like this is not serving me. And then now like you're in a place where you have dietitians working with you, and you're starting to find that balance. And
Mhm.
it's such a cool fucking thing to see, because
Yeah.
like like when you're in it, I don't know how you feel just as a mentor and a coach, but there are times where I'm just like sitting there, I'm like, I I think this is working. I don't know if we're gonna get the answer to that question right now, but from what
Mhm.
I'm seeing, if this person continues on and is able to build the things that we constantly talk about, holy shit, what it looks like a year from now is going to be so cool to see. And dude, I feel super grateful just be a part of the process. Like it's cool to see.
Yeah. No, you're a big part of the process. Yeah, guys, I don't know if you know this, but Desi's the one who inspired me and helped me get the TED Talk. Which, like,
Yeah,
I don't think if I did the TED Talk, I would have been motivated to do the book.
yeah,
So like you are, and you having this platform, getting other experts on, like you do such a great job helping people in probably ways that you don't even recognize.
yeah. And that's what's really fulfilling. And I think you and I really share that. So like we come to this part in the pod, Tony, where I love asking these like questions of everyone. And obviously, with this being the Can't Believe I Made It podcast, I would love for you to chime in on, um, do you feel like you've made it? And if not, what does making it look like for
Uh
you?
okay, I might cry.
Let's go.
I might cry. So, wow. Okay. So, I don't think that anybody with a true entrepreneurial spirit is ever going to feel 100% satisfied like they made it.
Mhm,
At the same time, I have made it. Meaning, I can't discredit all of the things that I have accomplished so far because they're
mhm,
pretty badass. Like, and we get so caught up in the day to day and what we're chasing and the next thing that we forget to recognize the things that we've done. And, I could sit here and rattle off a lot of things. I'm not going to do that right now, but I am very proud of where I'm at. At the same time, I'm only just beginning. Like,
mhm.
I see this as like I just barely, not even ice. Like, I'm like I got so much time ahead of me and I'm so excited. Um and so yeah, to answer your question, yes and no.
So, Tony, with where you're at right now in your process, can you describe in words what this means to you right now? Because I think for a lot of our listeners out there, it's really important to understand that being present through the process and
Mhm.
understanding that you might have an outcome that is in your mind. And in order to get even some sort of semblance of that, you're gonna have to appreciate where you are right now. So like what what
Yes.
does what does what does the process mean to you right now?
Ugh, it means anything. Honestly, I think the biggest lesson I got was actually doing the TED Talk because I think that, and it was good. My coach John Romanello really helped me recognize this. I was so fixated on the outcome that I had zero control over. Like I wanted the TEDx talk to go viral. It hasn't, by the
Yeah.
way. And if I
Mine
was
neither.
focused, yeah, if I was focused on it going viral, um, I wouldn't be proud that I did a TED Talk because it
Yeah.
hasn't gone viral. And I kept like putting all of this pressure on myself and honestly the pressure and the same thing would happen with my book. And I've let go of that. I don't I see it, I believe it, and I know it's going to help so many people. So I actually do feel like it is going to go places, this book, because I really did put my heart and soul into it. And as much as I did with the TED Talk, there's something special about this book that I really truly believe in. But with that said, even if that doesn't happen, I'm still proud of myself. And I
Yeah.
can't, you can't attach yourself to an outcome. Also, too, then most of the time, if we're fixated on one vision, we can miss a lot of very beautiful things and opportunities. And things can happen in a completely different way.
Yeah.
So to go back to your question, I think your question was, how does it feel? What does this feel? How does it mean
Yeah.
to you? What does this mean to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I think that it finally feels like it's enough. And I think that's been my story my whole life. Like from the overachiever to I went on a journey with weight loss at one point, and that's this aesthetic goal that I realized I'm done chasing, but for a while I thought I had to go back there. Um
Yeah.
there, if you never define what enough is, it's never going to feel like enough. So you really do come back when it comes down to appreciating your body, appreciating where
Yeah.
you live, appreciating your space. That's ultimately like the practice that you want to develop. And then just trust things are gonna always grow, because if that's the mindset that you have a growth mindset. You can just like kind of like let go of the outcome and just trust the process.
I think there's so much in that, Tony, that a lot of people are just really caught up in wanting that outcome, and there isn't enough awareness or possibly safety, or even just in many cases self-love and permission that you can be okay with where you're at, and if it's not serving you, then it's time to make some changes.
Totally, totally. And it also doesn't have to be big grandiose changes.
Yeah.
Like if that helps you get out of where you're at from feeling stuck, but often it's like the little things. It's
Yeah.
the day to day, it's the little things that you need to do to shift, to move the needle a little bit. And also to build momentum and confidence to set bigger boundaries, you
Hmm.
know. There's time, I mean, there's things that like, I'm trying to think, it seems so small and insignificant, but like I would feel such amount of guilt. My family is amazing, but they all live on Long Island, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with New York, but so my whole family is on Long Island, and I'm over the bridge in Westchester County, and I get all this pressure. They're Greek and Italian. They're together every. I swear to
Yeah.
God, like today I have an option to go there for it's a Tuesday, like for dinner, like
Yeah.
so like there's always something going on, and so for so long I felt so guilty for not going to everything, and like they'd give you the guilt trip. Like we
Yeah.
never see you. You're over the bridge. Why don't you move to this side of the bridge? And like for so long, like saying no to family events was so hard for me. But if I truly
Yeah.
wanted to like progress in where I was going with my career, I had to put some boundaries in place. And like saying no to a family event used to like literally give me such bad anxiety. And now I like think about like right now, honestly, I'm gonna check and look at the traffic. If it's crazy, I'm not going. If it's not crazy, I'm gonna be there. That's it.
Yeah.
And I don't care. Like it's not. I don't feel guilty about it. But I didn't just like that. And that seems so silly, but I know people listening can relate because it
Yeah.
seems so small and insignificant. But it took me a minute to get here. Especially if
Yeah.
you're a people pleaser, you feel like you need to be at everything. You can't miss out on anything. But you forget that the more you say yes to everything else, you don't realize it, but you're saying no to yourself. You're not creating the space. And that's something else I learned, that space is okay. Time is
Hmm.
okay. You know, you don't have to fill up your schedule and your calendar with everything, from morning till night for you to be considered successful or productive. That's a big fat lie. If anything, I think when it
Yeah.
comes to opportunities can't come to you if you're not open to receiving them. So I
Yeah.
would challenge anybody listening to make sure that they are creating space for that.
Well, for our listeners out there, if success leaves clues, and it freaking does, you just got a shit ton of them throughout the last 52 minutes and 56 seconds. So, uh, Tony, well, second to last question. Um, so obviously this pod is about the hero's journey. This pod is about habits. Pod is about anything that is involved with seeing an evolution in yourself. So, because it's mainly about people's hero's journey, I wonder if you can provide some insight here. So, and it's actually what I'm finding with this question is it's kind of a two part. So, either people are in the camp that they are really about superheroes, Marvel, or they're really about like really influential characters that they grew up on, like they're about that, or they're like, hey, I don't do any of that, but here's my hero. So either way you go, who is your hero comparison and why?
Oh God, I don't know. Ah, ha, ha, ha. I'm not a Marvel character person, just so you
Yeah.
know. Ah, who is my hero and why?
Yeah, so
So
this
my
can
first
be
thought,
like, go
I'll
ahead.
tell you, my first thought is my father.
Okay.
And I think I've learned a lot from him. He didn't grow up with in the best circumstances. His father abandoned him. His mom died when he was 5. His grandmother was watching him, but then she passed away, so he was adopted. Fortunately, I have a very loving family as a result. That's not actually blood related because he grew up with
Yeah.
his adopted
Wow.
family. But and back then the family who adopted him didn't have a ton of money, like, so he had to like kind of figure out life on his own pretty much. He had support, which is great, but I mean, you don't have both your parents, and his family was from Italy, and he's no one's, anyways, long story short, he really had to like build and make a beautiful life for himself, and because of him, I am able to do what I do today, without a
Mhm.
doubt. Like, he's made my life so much easier. I'm very blessed. I never had to worry. I always worked, because I believed in, like, I was always big in like strong work ethic. So I always like worked in college and I worked in high school, but he really had it set up where the priority was to get me into school, to get me to graduate. And if I chose not to work, he would have supported me in that way, like financially. And he just kind of always wanted me and my sister, to be super successful, because he knows what it was like to not have that and have to work his way towards it. And he didn't really have choices. Like, he kind of just like did construction, although he's very good at it. He got lucky, but
Yeah.
like kind of just like got into construction because he couldn't afford college. He couldn't afford anything that required academia. Um, and so yeah, so he's my hero because he just is just the type of person, how you're not just he doesn't wasn't doing anything just for himself. Like, obviously part of it
Yeah.
was for himself, but the bigger part was to provide for his family and to give what he didn't have. And that's my vision as well. I want to um do even better than he has done, because he I owe it to him almost.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. What's his name?
Tony.
Tony. I love
it's
it.
it's
Tony, shout
Anthony.
out to
It's
you.
Anthony, but
I figured.
everyone
Yeah,
calls
I
him Tony.
figured.
Yeah.
Yeah. Papa Anthony, I appreciate you for creating this
I was
wonderful little
named
human
after
being.
him. So I have to live
I
on his
figured.
legacy.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. All
Yeah.
right. Toni Marinucci, last question for you. So, where can people find you? What sort of projects are you really passionate about that you would love some support with? All those things. And for our listeners out there, we'll make sure that we throw all of this stuff in the show notes just so that you can have access to it.
Appreciate that. At Instagram is the best place to find me, at tips underscore with underscore Tony with an I. I've recently been growing my TikTok. I'm doing a really good job,
Hey,
Des. I don't know if you've noticed. I've had
I
2 videos
noticed.
go viral after you post a bazillion of them. But so nutrition tips with Tony on TikTok. And I'm joking, guys. I have not a lot of followers, but it's getting there. It's getting there. I'm actually putting
I
time,
love it.
effort, and energy in there. Um, but yeah, and then I think the biggest thing that you could help me out with is, once this book comes out, Des, when are you releasing this
Absolutely.
episode?
So this episode will probably get released in 3 weeks.
Okay, so it really might be right around my time of launch.
Yeah, so
So
it'll be the 24th.
okay, so it'll be a little bit before. So the book will be on its way out probably a week or two after that.
Nice.
If anything that I said about my journey resonated with you, or if you know someone who maybe has been struggling with their body image or relationships, we didn't really get too much into relationships, but I'll give you the short version. I dated 5 versions of the same guy, just with a different name and a different face. Many people do that with diets. They do one diet, then they do another diet,
Yep.
hoping each one's the one, disappointed that it doesn't work out, but they weren't meant to work out in the long run anyway, because you were
Yeah.
ignoring the red flags. So that's what the book is about in a nutshell. If you want to watch the TEDx talk, I can give you the link for that so you guys can watch it out. But if anything about what I just said resonates with you, or you know someone who might resonate, please encourage them to buy the book, or get the book for them as a present. I put a lot of my heart and soul into it. I'm very authentic and honest throughout it. And it's really there to help you. So it's part of my story, part of client stories, and a big component of it is also educational, to help you to see things in a different way so that you can find balance in your eating habits and make peace with food and your body.
I love it. And the fact that I know the guy that is in charge of this pod, we can just have this launch for launch week. So yeah, it'll be great.
Exciting. Yeah, I'll let you know. I'll let you know when
Awesome.
it's out. It'll be available on Amazon.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So yeah, I just decided right now that because I this is my pod. I can do whatever the hell I want. That will do it on launch
Yay!
week. So as you're listening to this, you'll be able to find the link on Amazon to go and get the book. All right. So for our listeners out there, please, please make sure that you do yourself that favor and you start following Toni. She is such an amazing person and one that really challenges you to start loving all the parts of yourself. And that's a message that I definitely resonate with. So as always, by now, as your host, as your high performance mentor, I'm pushing you to do some homework. So if there is a one liner or something that you really loved or resonated with, I want you to take a screenshot of this episode, post it on any of your IGs, Facebook stories, like whatever your social is, and make sure you tag us at Dezi Abeda and at I Made It Pod, as well as with Toni, to make sure that you're like, hey, this really resonated with me, or like, hey, I'm going to start working on this, because the application is definitely what we need to throw ourselves into. So
Mhm.
much love to you all. Toni, you're amazing.
Thank you for
Don't
having
go,
me.
don't go away. We'll talk a little bit more. For our listeners out there, I'll see you next Friday. Bye.